Oh, my chickies off a base before I start talking. Shh. 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 IT with Glenn and Tony. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Aunt.
I think we're chickies now.
Ah, boom, chicka, boom, boom.
Bok, bok.
Now then, where was I on my?
So, what was the pick on the last one? What was it in the end?
Ooh, no spoilers,
I
right?
didn't
Right?
catch it.
Mm-hmm.
I was practicing that just in case. Oh,
Very cool.
Daltenius in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, I just saw his video. He just posted one.
Very cool. I did not catch up back on my feed yet, so I'll have to check that out later. Definitely cool.
Oh, I've been catching up on my feed for the last week and a half.
Yeah, now that you got a connection,
Trying to cover the last 4 months worth of feed.
got to get it all in while you can, right? Definitely a good way to do it.
Oh, and it moves fast.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier is a couple different places, like with Reverb Nation and the tie-in that BandLab was doing with Reverb Nation, and how it now there's also tying in with Zaire for music promotion.
Yeah, the Zaire, I'm really interested in seeing what this service is.
Yeah, let's take a look at that real quick.
And they've been adding all sorts of features. In the past 2 months, I think I've seen more BandLab updates to the website and integrating this way than I have in the last 2 years.
Right. So this is on BandLab, blog.bandlab.com, I should say. And that's something that a lot of people don't really know about what's over there, but just going over there and browsing around, seeing what they have. There's all kinds of good articles. This one is about promoting your music, and it does mention how it ties in with both with Reverb Nation. It says via Reverb Nation, so I imagine it's tied in with Reverb Nation directly, but it also mentions how it also get more clicks through all the other all of your other online connections that you would have set up.
Here, do you want to share your screen? Because right now I don't
Yeah,
see
it's
it.
probably easier that way.
I see it just in the camera, but
Sure.
I'm getting the yellow outline for some reason. Probably my hum.
That's probably me. Yeah, that's right. Because I might not be talking loud enough either to make it register.
Yeah, my hum's so good. I'm always yellow.
There you go. So let's see.
There we go.
All right.
So it's an automated music promotion system, which is kind of like DistroKid, right? I mean, a lot of that is automated.
Yeah, I think so. As far as the individual steps, though, it talks about picking a public BandLab track or album that you would like to promote down here. You go from revisions and go there. But again, it needs to be something public, so it's something that's already been released. Is the idea?
And actually, it's good that they're getting people thinking of their songs with ad campaigns. Because if you really are about to release the best song you ever did and you want to see it be a hit, you do have to think like ad campaigns for a song these days.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, you just put a good song on the right album, and that song made the album. But now, songs kind of have to do it on their own.
Right. In this part, they're just highlighting the part of the screen here where you would see it on your track. So you're probably already seeing that button there.
I have been seeing it. I have not clicked it yet.
Mm-hmm. Tempting, right? Don't click the button. Oh no. Always tempting to click buttons, but
they know how to make it tempting. Promote this track. Like that is what an artist wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 30-second preview. Wait a few seconds for it to begin crafting.
So you pick 30 seconds of the song.
We should try it, right?
Well, if it's a good song, it should be the first 30 seconds.
Well, that's the thing is, to me, what I would usually go for would be something where it's maybe the last 15 seconds of a verse. And so you're getting verse and chorus. So you're getting the feel of both parts of the song, and you're getting the hook in there and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I would aim for. Some people would go. It depends how distinctive the beginning or ending are. Because sometimes if you just did the first 30 seconds, you might only get a flavor for that one part of the song.
Actually, if you're really slick with the mixing, you could grab like 10 seconds from here, 10 seconds from there, 10 seconds from there, and cover the whole song. If you can transition between the verse sound, the chorus sound, and maybe a
saying
solo.
Zyre is a paid fancy ad program for advertising your work. Automated advertising. Yeah, I'm big on the ones that are free and or very useful. If you're paying for something, I would expect to get a lot for what I'm paying for, and I haven't looked into what they're offering fully.
Well, you'd want to, in this case, you'd want to make sure you're getting promoted. It's like getting an agent who never goes and gets you a gig. You know, if you're going to get an agent, you want one who can help you get gigs.
One thing that caught my eye about the whole thing in general was that it was linked to Reverb Nation. And I do have a Reverb Nation page. I just haven't really looked at it. I mean, I made that page, a decade ago, 8 years ago, who knows? It's been a long time. But I had a personal page there and I had a band page over there. And it's a useful resource, a place where you can put videos. I was showing Tony the other day. There's videos over there we can look at. There's audio over there from back then. You can see how many views you've had, how many, you track things, which things are more popular. It's a good way to get things together. So I figured if this links in with that already, that would have been a good way to leverage that. Yeah. But I think actually the other page might have been more useful than the one where they actually talked about the crowd review.
And Reverb Nation has a different way of showing an artist off.
Right.
One of my big problems with BandLab when it comes to showing a library of work, you go to an artist profile page, it's kind of confusing where the artist's work really is. Like in the old days, I made bands for my different types of music, like my piano music's in a band. Right. Where I put all my piano music, and most people don't find my stuff because they don't know to go look in the bands, and I'm in a zillion of them.
Right.
Reverb Nation is nice because it really does focus on the artist, their material, has a video section, which I really wish BandLab would take a lesson from. It's kind of like having a little YouTube in your music library.
Right. It's a good way to do it. And again, with the with the reverb stuff, I didn't really look too much into it recently, but some of the stuff that I did have over there, I went back and just looked at, and there's a number of views over there. There's a number of new followers we have over there, so I should definitely look more actively at what is there.
Yeah, the Inducer's got some followers.
Yep. And here we have the crowd review stuff on. Actually, I stopped sharing, but yeah, we had the crowd review stuff from the reverb that they had also as the other page from the blog.bandlab.com.
And this is where it integrates with the Reverb Nation. Their crowd review comes more through Reverb Nation. Yeah.
So this one is more of the button again that was already on the page about would you like to have your work reviewed? And if you already have an account on Reverb, it would basically just tie to that. If you don't, you can have it. I think it'll walk you through going through the steps to create it.
See, and it's kind of good that BandLab is partnering with them this way, because the reviews you get typically on BandLab are going to be from your peers, other musicians, whereas Reverb Nation is kind of like a cross between BandLab and Spotify. You have music listeners in that audience more so than you do on BandLab. The crowd review there is the crowd.
Nice. Yeah, Tany's just making some points about that too. Free with subscription. I was thinking that they may have required Reverb. That would make sense why it's tied in more directly than it was.
And I wouldn't be surprised if, BandLab has to be considering how to monetize and make subscriptions for services. I wouldn't be surprised if advanced integration with other sites like this becomes something that, $5 a month, $10 a month, you get extra BandLab features. They must be thinking of it.
Yeah, always looking to add value or add even perceived value to be able to charge, or to add different levels of ways of charging. Yeah.
If I could get a streaming key every night without having to generate it, You want something worth subscribing for in that case, dedicated streaming keys, some of that noise being able to be turned off with the notifications, which they have added some. Jason showed me their last update a few weeks ago, added a whole bunch of features to the notifications. You can turn a lot of noise off.
That's good. You'd also mentioned the opportunities, getting your next big break on there, making connections, booking shows, getting signed. And this also mentions via Reverb Nation. This is probably another way into
Now,
the
see,
same section.
Book shows and get signed. Again, this is more orientated towards like band or artists that really want to get out there and perform. They're kind of becoming virtual agents in that sense. And it is a service.
Yes, indeed. It's both a service and it's a centralized area, and the people who are there earliest, getting in early has its advantages to, already having networks built, already having people, connections with people, so that we can find more like-minded people to all get together and make better stuff.
Yeah, or get options that later users of the same service might not have. The ones who have been beta testing BandLab subscription option, because they only picked a few people to beta test that.
That's right.
Those artists are really the pioneers.
And that's where we should definitely get some feedback from them to see how the selection has been for them. To me, one of the difficulties would be trying to decide which things would be gated behind, only subscribers get to see this content, where I want to still be putting out enough content for everybody else as well, because you want to stay relevant to everyone, to have interest, as well as having good content and a good reason for people to want to have the premium content.
Yeah, that exclusive content. What I've noticed so far is the ones who, they either have custom beats like Wooga, or they have songs that aren't released in their public pages, and lessons. Sarah Cleary, she does lessons through her subscription.
Right. That was one that I thought would be particularly useful.
Well, that's
anybody being able to offer services such as lessons.
Yeah, whether it's learning how to play a certain instrument or how to write a certain kind of song. Music consulting for a song is maybe more valuable sometimes than learning how to play an instrument.
Right. But yeah, these are mentioning things that are on the blog pages, so be sure to check them out. It's one of the places that not a lot of people go to see things, but it's good to find what's coming up, what's new, what new features might be interesting.
Yeah, they don't advertise this domain off of the main BandLab website, but blog.bandlab.com is where all their instructional videos, all the useful things going on over there are being posted.
Right. One thing that we're also going to have to look at one day, not today, but one of these days, is the Discord. Getting on the BandLab Discord and taking a look through some of the things that are there, because we can definitely make some contacts there. We can definitely see some good insights there as well, I believe.
Yeah. And we took a little look at Discord, a few months back, but now I'm drinking milk and I got a real connection. I'm going back there with a vengeance.
Exactly. That's what's different than it was the first time we looked.
Yeah, there's a lot going on over there. They even have additional contests that you don't see on the website.
And that's bonus.
Yeah, it's the ones who are really serious.
It also seemed to be better for, not better, but more engaging for things about newer features, like, asking what features you'd like to see, or what, bug reporting, all that kind of stuff. It seems like a good avenue for that, more direct.
Yeah, there's definitely some programmers paying attention over there.
Exactly. A more direct line. Not that people should be there nagging whatever about every day, like, hey, where's that feature I asked about 9 years ago? But more just.
Well, and the programmers are generally good at, like, because I've been a programmer, I've been tech support. I know I can separate the nagging from a customer, like, oh, this feature sucks, or expectations don't meet. But at the same time, you gain valuable debugging information from even the naggers will still tell you what's wrong with your programming
or what they'd like to see. You know, features. A lot of people have excellent suggestions that people that were writing a program didn't necessarily think of. You know, even things like the time when we talked about having one button to be able to turn on or off the entire signal chain, so that you don't have to go through and individually turn effects on and off. It's like you should just be able to boom, boom. You know,
I would imagine their cakewalk programmers talking to their web programmers who are dealing with and the app developers, you know, the ones making the mobile and the web editor. I would imagine the cakewalk programmers must be like saying to them, you got to get this in here, assuming that it's possible, because turning off all those effects change should be doable.
Right. Yeah, it should be. It shouldn't be that difficult. And again, it's as simple as, to me, right now, if you're on a preset, you know, you have this preset, and which is, you know, current, and then you have a preset of none, and you just toggle between this preset, done, and back. I mean, if it maintains those settings, you know, you only have to maintain that one slot for whatever and the one slot for none, and you can just use that as a toggle back and forth.
Well, I bet you their preset control is getting more advanced. They're updating it, because you notice like they added that ability now to save and share presets. So
exactly, that was what I wanted to talk about.
That means they're restructuring their preset approach, and it might not be too much longer before there's a temporary preset where you can turn off the whole effects chain just by telling every track use the temporary off and go back to the previous preset when you turn the chain back on. And that way you don't lose where you were at.
Yeah. People are asking what kind of DAW we use for music. Kind of all of them. Yeah, and that's the thing is, primarily, like, I'll do things in the BandLab interface. I'll do things in Cakewalk. I also have Studio One, but I also have friends who have all kinds of other things. So I'll use different ones for different situations. I see a lot of stuff that Jason does in Reaper. You know, getting familiar with that and watching other people use them is very useful. And the more you get familiar with any one DAW, the more quickly you can assimilate to what other people are doing in another one, which I find useful as well.
In the end, what you're using a DAW for is more important than which DAW you use. Right. I mean, in most cases, you're using the DAW to record your track. Whether you're singing, playing, you're trying to get your music into a track and blended with other music. A DAW for mixing is different than, say, a DAW for recording. I can get tracks from people recording on BandLab and get a good track. Do I want to mix in the BandLab editor? No, because I can do more with those tracks in a Cakewalk DAW or Reaper. You want to be versatile with your DAWs. No DAW should scare you. You just want to use the right one.
Good choice. Yeah.
Well, Cakewalk's a great choice on the Windows side, and Reaper's a great choice across any operating system. It's why, in the end, it's the one I would have to encourage the most, because Linux support, no other DAW actually gives you Linux, Mac, and Windows. People can really share their tracks.
And one thing that we'll definitely do one day is, you know, sneak a little spy camera onto Jason's shoulder and like watch him work in Reaper for a few minutes and, like, you know, get a little video of that, because just seeing how quickly he can do this, and this, like copy this here, change this over here, move this over there. Oh, I wanted to add this or replace that over there. See how quickly he can do all that stuff.
He sold me more on Reaper than anything else. Just
features
watching the workflow.
Workflow, exactly.
Yeah, when you get so comfortable with it, his workflow is incredible. Snappy, boom, move, everything. In the time that I would take me 6 hours, I've seen him do things in 30 minutes.
And there are some DAWs that you could fire up and you're beating your head against a wall just to get a single input routed somewhere. And you don't know why. And it's like you're doing this, you're doing that. And it's like some of it just comes down to not bad design, but bad assumptions on the part of the designers,
or confusing input output. Because tell me how many of these guys who popped in trying to learn Cakewalk or one of these, and they can't figure out how to get their input signal into a track because the input output is confusing. Once you do get shown though, like it gets so much easier.
Well, like Knight says, you don't necessarily want to learn a whole new DAW. Once you have one that you know, you don't have to know all the rest. As long as you can get quality input into a quality recording, even if it's just individual tracks, that's good enough. You can get that to somebody who, you know, can put it into a real DAW, and people, you know, we can walk you through getting it into a real DAW and being able to do good things with quality input. The main thing is quality input. You got to get something in that doesn't have a lot of noise to it. It can't be far in the distance. I mean, there's ways to fix these things, but you're so much better off getting a solid signal to start with.
Yeah, you got to be able to calibrate your signal. So say you got a Focusrite and a mic, and whatever DAW you load up, you set the input for, you know, Focusrite channel 1 to get the mic. You've got to calibrate what you're getting for a signal from the audio device like the Focusrite, the input on the DAW side that it's picking up, and make sure you're not blasting out a giant wave that blows the ceiling out.
That's a big one, yeah.
Yeah. Once you calibrate that mic and get a good input from the signal coming in and the DAW recording that signal, and you got a nice wave that shows the sound that it's supposed to, you're calibrated. Don't change those settings. Remember them.
The other one was not being too reliant on things like presets. Presets are a great way to preview what things would sound like, get you in the right neighborhood of a sound, and then once you get to a preset, realize why it's doing what it's doing. And again, I've been into a phase where I try to minimize what I was doing. When I first got into doing things in a DAW, I was trying to maximize things more, do as much as I could. But I got to where I was trying to, you know, less is more, trying to do less and have it sing more, you know, just get quality input from a solid instrument, and then be able to, okay, put a little reverb on it if you want to have, you know, have it in the same room, as you say, to tie it together with a little glue to get it all the other pieces together. But you don't have to get super fancy with it. You don't have to always do amp sims and this and that. You can really just start with
the more fancy you get, the more those presets, like volume changes when you change presets or sounds. You know, with my keys, if I change categories here, I could blow your ears out with a certain sound, whereas like another sounds very quiet.
Exactly. That's why
Daltanius was saying about he gets severe latency with the BL mixer. Yes, that's why I don't use the BL mixer, because the latency. Plus, I get clicks and pops. Not as bad as the old days. And Glenn, you know, showed me the refresh the screen and the clicks and pops go away. But it's that latency and those things that keep me away from that mixer. I don't want to mix over there.
Part of that comes into how many tracks you have. Like if you have a 5-minute long song or whatever and 14 tracks in it, you try to put that 15th track in, you're starting to have problems, this and that. For me, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is all very basic or very skeletal. So I'm dealing with at most 3 or 4 tracks. So even there, adding another track usually doesn't start any of those problems with, you know, clicking or any of that kind of stuff, because it's still only a few tracks. It's when we start getting, at least in my experience, it's when it starts to become a really complex project, or somebody sends me a project to add to that already has 14 tracks.
Or when you start turning on those effects channels.
Lots of them, yeah, for sure.
Even if you're just dealing with MIDI and you turn on, because BandLab does have that unique feature. You can apply acoustic effects to MIDI tracks. That's actually, it's really cool, but at the same time, it's very heavy, because in order for them to apply that audio effect to that MIDI track, they have to actually render that MIDI track to wave. And that's probably why I get some of the clicks and pops I do, because I'm trying to work with MIDI usually with them.
Definitely.
And the effects are where a lot of that weirdness starts happening.
And a big thing does come down to musical style, because, you know, lots of metal stuff are going to have a lot more effect stuff that are just baked in compared to other styles. Like if I'm just doing, you know, folk guitar or something, I'm just playing guitar. I don't care. You know, I'm not looking to stack super effects on or anything. I don't have a specific sound I'm going for. I'm just playing the guitar and recording the sound of the guitar. Whereas somebody might have a very particular metal tone in mind, or a very particular hard rock tone, or whatever. Like, different styles of music have much more defined tones that you'd be looking for. But for me, again, I would go much more with getting pure signal in with little effect on it, and then you can always add or change the effects later without having to worry about trying to take effect off of something that's too saturated or too strong of a signal, like you said.
Yeah, and that's when it goes back to calibration. That's how you want to calibrate. If you're putting a guitar signal in, give it a clean signal and see what you're capturing first, especially if you're playing like, hard chords and things. Look at the wave, get a nice calibrated clean guitar before you try pumping distortion, and consider if whether you need to pump that distortion. And you don't need to record a wet track with distortion. If you can play the part clean, record the track clean, add the distortion
and visualize what it'll be while you're playing it clean. Like you're kind of anticipating, you're playing it clean and you're not hearing what you're expecting, but it's like you're practicing on your couch, not plugged in. It's like, what you're playing and what it's going to sound like when you do have all the effects on it, but you don't have to have it at arena ear splitting volume to get to understand what you need to play to make that sound happen later.
Yeah. It's why Jason can rip through a fucking project like that. Everything he does is clean when he's recording. All the effects are post and they're non-destructive. Don't like this distortion, change to a different distortion. Don't want the distortion, hit the power button.
Totally different amps.
Non-destructive effects editing is what you're looking for. You make a wet track, you don't like it, you have to make the track again.
The other one, like Knight was mentioning, the BandLab mastering, he says isn't good, but he appreciates that it's free. Yeah, I also agree. Say I wouldn't want to rely on the BandLab. I don't want to badmouth anything, but I wouldn't want to rely on the BandLab mastering.
Those who can use it, and some of what some people do, I'm always impressed by what I see people doing in the BandLab editor.
And it's not bad to do that mastering and hear the result and compare then what happens when you do your own mastering. And your own mastering, again, like what we were saying, if you start by just taking each instrument and making sure that it's not, you solo that instrument, you make sure that it's not too loud, you don't have too much effect on it, all those kinds of things. But you also make sure that there's extra room at the top because you're going to be adding more to the signal. And the more pieces that you have, the more you have to be aware that some are going to add together and build and get to where it's too loud. And that's where you start getting those brick waveforms. Certain styles of music are more prone to that as well, where from the start it's just boom up to 100% and just sits there the whole time.
Isn't it funny? You can look at a bunch of tracks by themselves and not see any kind of peaking or anything out of the ordinary. And as you're doing your final master, you got all these tracks together and you're looking at your master output, and sometimes it's like, holy shit, it's blowing out to the reds. Why? And sometimes it's because there's too many things playing at the same time in the same space, and the spread doesn't bring the levels down enough because everything's going up the middle.
It can be the effect of constructive interference in similar bands too. Like if you have a piano playing and you have a guitar playing and they're in a similar frequency space and the two are playing the same notes, those can positively reinforce and push both signals higher than they both seemed fine, but together they push higher.
Yeah, in that kind of scenario, that's where EQing on the master when you're done helps. Just like spreading things will bring down some levels with certain instruments.
It's also where panning can help.
EQ mastering at the end can actually bring down the levels to the proper place just by finding those problem frequencies.
If you find that it is just two instruments that are fighting like that, like it is a piano and it is a guitar, if you just sat there and panned them, you have one that's mostly left and one that's mostly right, that can also help with, making enough space for the two to coexist without pushing too much.
Yeah, and volume goes down when you pan. Like if you've got this level center, no matter which way you go, the level's gonna go down the more you push to the side.
And it's good to be aware of the panning anyway, just in general. Think about the whole musical space and think about the fact that you don't want everything just coming down the center. Like a lot of times you want the bass coming down the center, drums mostly down the center, but if you can, depending on how you have the drums split up, you could have it where if somebody's doing a roll from the high toms down to the floor, you want it to go from left to right or from right to left, or you want it to move right, different ways depending on the time.
Yeah, panning is as important to separating sound as using different instruments. Like, if you are using different instruments, you would want them in different spaces. All my drum kits, the nice thing with MIDI, especially nowadays, all the samples tend to be panned to make a kit feel like it's in a room.
Right.
So when you do roll the toms on
Mhm.
most MIDI kits, it will sound like it's do 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 going
Right.
from left to right, because the sample is helps to do that.
And again, with some of the heavier styles, you could just have bass drum in your face all day, and and if it's in the same place in the sound field, if you're just getting machine gun kick drum in the face, that can also detract from hearing any of the rest of the drum spacing.
Especially if it goes right up the middle. If
Right.
I was doing like that, I would take the Jason approach of hard panning
Mhm.
and get those bass drums actually hard panning, so that would actually go
They're
to the
bouncing.
extreme
Yeah.
left and right,
Mhm.
and produce that kind of bounce where it feels like your head's just bouncing back and forth.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's where, yeah, mixing live drums, like we were saying, when we mic up drums for live gigs, Mike has it all set up where he just goes and gets all the mics actually mounted on the kit, and he has, I think he puts mics on all the shells, and there's ones that are close enough to the overheads to get kind of that feel. Um, so like if he dedicates at least, I guess, 5 or 6
Yeah, and
mics to
Mike
drums.
knows, no pun intended, Mike knows the mic.
My buddy Mike. Yep.
The location of the mics and how you set them in those channels
Oh yeah.
for live performances. That's how you bring the drums into the rest of the performance. Because
And he sometimes has me to go do it also. So I mean,
imagine
I've
if
gotten
that
used to
poor
doing it
drummer,
myself.
imagine if that poor drummer was on that stage with no mics and
Mhm.
everybody else is amplifying.
Sure.
And I've had that situation on
Now,
some
to me, it's
shows.
not always so bad because the drums can be, they can usually be as loud as you would want anything to be in the room. Now, it's possible for people to be playing guitars
You
and
got to
be
have the
even
right
louder
room,
than
though.
that.
If
But
you don't have the drums mic'd
Mhm.
or somehow amplified, you got to be in a room that helps the drums to actually get out there.
I do love listening to when he's ringing in the drums, like after he gets all the drums mic'd up and he's over there doing the mic checks to get everybody checked out. And he's got Mike mixes from his iPad, so he's got his iPad and he's over there by the drummer and he tells him, okay, start with the kick, and he's hitting the kick and you're hearing the kick, but then all of a sudden it goes from like you're hearing boom, 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 and like, oh, there it is, because all of a sudden it's coming from the subs as well.
Yeah.
And once he gets that dialed in, it's like, oh, okay, here we go. Now gets everything else all dialed in and we're good.
And yes, Daltonius, it is expensive as fuck to get those drum mics, and a lifetime to learn to use them.
Yeah.
Even when you got a mixer like Glenn does with that ProSonus.
Yep. And that's the thing, is when we go to do these live gigs, Mike has the ProSonus 24, and he actually switched recently to the one that is the rack mount. So it's basically, we just plug from the snake. You can just plug in. You could just go with the digital snake and just plug in the Cat 6, but we usually just go with the old snake, the analog snake, and plug in direct to the XLR channels on the front. So it's got the 24 inputs right there on the front. Get that all connected, and that runs that snake out to the front of the stage, out in front of where the drums are, because that's where he wants to just be able to drop everything from the drums right in. And you can bring the mic straight back to there, and he's got the amps from the guitars and keyboards and bring those right into there.
Oh, and 24 should be more than enough for most of your gig situations.
I mean,
except for those like big ass brass bands.
Even those,
where
we use it for those too. Yeah.
You need a couple more mics for all those brass.
Mhm.
But 5 to 7 on the drums, if you've got the channels and the mics,
Mhm.
that's how you mic a drum.
And like you said, the plexi barrier is definitely, we don't see that a lot, but that would be a key way of keeping things separated. If you were trying to do a good live recording in the room, having that plexi barrier to reflect the drums away from the rest of the band, so you're getting clean signals from everybody and not getting the spill from everybody into the drums or from the drums into everybody.
Yeah. Some of those like morning shows when they have like bands playing on them,
right?
I've noticed that in a lot of their performances, the drummers are in the plexi little bubble.
Yep.
It works really good. I mean, it cuts out a lot of the bleed through.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me that they inherited sheets of plexi or sheets of basically whatever it was that was super bulletproof glass, like
Oh,
bank
damn.
bulletproof glass. And I was like, oh, drum baffles. Like you should build, build
Hell
a
yeah.
barricade out of that. But then I'm thinking, like, that's probably super heavy too. So I'm like, maybe not, because I might have to carry that.
I was going to say that's why you get roadies, but you are sometimes the roadies.
I am frequently the roadie, yes. If I'm not the roadie, I am one of the assistant roadies. And if I'm not, I'm still a nice guy, so I'm still helping everybody carry everything.
Well, it can't
So,
be
yeah.
much worse than some of those monitors. I mean,
No, I mean the biggest
those
things
can
that we
get-
carry are the mains and the subs, and the subs are the big ones. They're
Yeah.
3 foot by 3 foot by 4 foot, whatever. They're probably 70 pounds each, maybe. I
Isn't
don't
it funny what we do for bass these days? Do you
Mhm.
remember the old days of music when there was no subwoofer?
know. Sure.
Like the subwoofer really did change our low end on sound.
Mhm.
When they started doing the surround sound and you started getting dedicated bass speakers,
Mhm.
you started seeing music that was just all about the boom.
Well, one of the monitors that I bring, again, we bring the subs, the mains, as well as the monitors to set everybody up, and we usually bring at least 5 monitors, at least 5 of the wedges that we can put in front of a singer or a guitar player or what have you. But we also have one that's slightly larger that has a larger speaker for the low end, and we use that as a speaker for the drummer, so you can hear the kick drum and or the bass pushing through that. So I mean, I could use that even as a bass speaker, for myself if I wanted to while I'm out. But usually when I go, like when I've had these last couple of open mics, past week, I've just been bringing in the bass and my pedal,
You just
that
have
one
to run
DI
your
box.
signal, right?
What's that?
You're just running your signal right into the house mixer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the one we did a couple days ago, I just did the bass, just 1/4 inch instrument cable right from the bass to the board, and he already had, or sorry, no, right to he had a guitar pedal rig set up, and we weren't really using any of the pedal rig except for just a little boost, just to get a little signal, and plugged it in, and it sounded fine. He wasn't putting distortion on it or any of that. But my bass is passive, so it just did it that way, and I had my pedal with me, but I was like, yeah, we'll just do it that way. It's fine, because it was a small room anyway.
You ever put distortion on your bass?
Distortion, yeah, actually not so much distortion, but the bubble bass. The pedal's called bass.
That's got some punch.
The pedal's called Baseballs, and that's the one where there's certain Fish songs that use that particular sound, and if you they bounce, you get that kind of thing
Yeah,
going
it's like
on.
a funky distortion.
Exactly, it's an envelope filter, yeah, and it definitely it gets you that sound. When you hear it, you're like, oh, that sound, yeah, and that's why I call it the bubble bass sound. And whenever I hear it, I'm like, yeah, that, because that's what I have that pedal for. And I do have the other pedal with a fun name, the bass Big Muff. And that's the green pedal. That is kind
Did
of
you
like,
say Big Muff?
yes, I did.
Now
big
I need
green
a
pedal.
rated R
Yeah.
for this show.
Well, I have the bass balls and the bass Big Muff. Those are the 2 pedals that I have for the bass, and that's actually pretty much all I need. For the guitar, I have that the Boss pedal, the sampler,
Oh, the looper.
the looper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pointing at the wrong camera. That one. Yeah, the RC30. That was what we were saying. Not the 30, not the 300. The one that Slither had, I think, was the 300, but I think he also had the 30 before that.
Yeah, he's got a couple of them.
And then the really small one is like the RC3, I think, where it's only like half of the size of this one, where it's just the one stump. But this one has the 2 sides, so you can have two different loops going. Start one on the one side, then you can do a second one, and have
each one of them will let you just keep piling on one channel.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty insane, like how much you can add to a song just on one loop channel.
Mm-hmm. And that's where when you get into like some of the stuff that Mark Rebele was doing with his, I think it was the 505.
Oh, he's amazing. His looping skills.
Yeah.
Those who have assimilated to the loop approach, it's such a nice, easy way to like assemble a song, because you start with that one little riff, and next thing you know, being able to pile loops on top and build it up. You can write your intro, you can put your build up, you can go into the actual song, and
the way that
if you have multiple channels, you can even make the chorus on a separate channel and bounce back and forth.
with the 5 channels and the way that he layers things, he'll have like, even if you just started with, you just start with something
And
simple, like
sometimes that's where you start.
and you just do 2 measures of that or whatever, and you just start doing builds on that, but not on that channel so much, right? You build on the other channels and leave that one just like that. And then when you want to go into make it sound different, you can just turn that one off, and all of a sudden you go into something with no drums on it, and you have that little break in the middle, and then you jump back into it, and like knowing which ones, and he just keeps track. And when you watch him work, like you'll see which ones he stacks on which, and how you can have a whole different section by turning these all off and just having that one, or turning this one on and leaving whatever. Like by choosing the different ones, totally changes everything up.
Yeah, he's really good at those pads that he has on his controller. Basically, even if he's just dealing with that one loop, and he builds 16 parts for that loop, and then just decides which 16 blocks are going to be on at any given time.
And the video he posted today was with the 505. Nice, excellent. Love that thing, man. Again, I would love to mess around with that. The one I have, like I just said, is the 30, which it's not nearly as capable as the other one, but you can get the idea.
Oh, the 505
get yourself
is
started.
The big dog. Yeah, that's the
fancy one. That is the one that Rebel Aid was using. Yeah.
Yeah.
About 500. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, those are not cheap yet.
Not cheap, but actually what you can do with them and what you could do with it live. Because I mean, the guy who was running,
they are worth their cost.
Oh yeah. The guy who was running the open jam last night was not even using one as good, quote unquote, as this one. He was just using a single one like the RC3. So he just had the one loop, but it didn't matter because that's all he needed is just, he's playing rhythm into a verse of the song. He'll just start it up. And then at the end of that verse, he'll kick that loop in and start and do a solo over a whole verse section. And then he's all set, or erase everything that he did and then just do it again for the next song. So he was able to do that comfortably for himself back and forth. The 303, right? And that was, I think that's the one that Slither has. The whether it was the 300 or the 303. The one Joe has. It was one that's slightly higher than this one, but
it's got a lot of versatility. I mean, he's got like 6 inputs into that thing coming from all sorts of different plugs, and can route them to any one of those 3 channels.
That was one of the crazy things about this one is, I mean, this one, the RC30 is a pretty small form factor, and it's got the 2 pedals. But like you said, it's
I think it's got a lot of connections. Plugs. Yeah,
I mean, there's 5.
Yeah, and there's an 1/8 inch USB. If you want to.
Yep. There's the aux in, yep, for that one. There's also the power direct in. It's got
not to mention it's USB, like straight into the computer as an audio device. Yep. It's always a good sell.
When I was using the connection for the PC, the USB connection was to back up the tracks that are in there or to load tracks into it, because I was also using it as a rehearsal device, because I can just take this, and because of the batteries, you just throw batteries into it.
You made it your bitch.
Yeah. I did, but it's just threw the batteries into it, and that way I could take it as a practice device.
It runs off batteries too?
Yep. So I can just plug in.
Are those the big ones?
These are double A's.
Oh, those are doable, yeah.
Double A's 6 double A's. 6 double A's, and I got a stack of double A's because I bring those for gigs, because people are like, oh, like we use them for the wireless microphones. So yeah, I have a brick of whatever the big monster brick of batteries that you get at the store.
If I was gonna buy a case of batteries, it would be double A's.
Yeah, exactly.
You remember in the old days the D's, like for the boom boxes and shit.
Yep. Oh, and he's saying the 303 is foot and the 505 is hand. That makes sense.
Yeah.
This one technically would be foot also. The 30. See, it's like foot, but I could use it either way. But I get what you mean. Like the 505 definitely feels more like a hand thing, and wouldn't be as comfortable trying to use it with feet.
A looper for foot or hand, because I've talked to a couple of different musicians about like why they put it on their desk, and obviously when you're in the studio and you're doing things where it's convenient to just be sitting there and tap it on your desk versus at your foot when you're on stage.
Yeah, and that's the thing. All the pedals, they really have.
It's nice when it can go both ways.
They have that rugged build to them, but like he's saying, the 505. When I look at it, I haven't really dealt with it much myself. But like he's saying, it sounds like it's more of a hand thing, where it's not so much, like the dials or things that they're knobs or plastic knobs. I'm thinking that you'd be dialing rather than being able to stomp on them like you would for some of the others.
Yeah, and or the even like the combo pedals. Has a lot more work it's doing, more buttons that you might need precision pushing. The more complex your interface starts to get stomp pedals, can't do everything.
Trying to remember where I put my my bass big muff. It's around here somewhere.
Where's your muff?
Where's my bass big muff? It's with my baseballs. I know that. They're together somewhere. They're probably in. They used to call me Dr. Bass sometimes because I had a bag, the bag that I would use for for carrying all of my bass stuff. Essentially looked like the old like in an old Western movie or whatever. A doctor came in, they'd have that bag where it's like a briefcase but fatter, and like the top opens, like flaps open on both sides or whatever, but carrying it around with one handle. But I had all my pedals in there because the briefcase or the bag would keep itself wide enough. It was like wide enough for pedals to be in there comfortably, and I could also have a shitload of cables in there and all that kind of thing.
See,
But
I would do like that bassist for that band that you guys go to, where I would build my own little
thing, yeah,
play pen for all my pedals.
yeah. And
Because
Bones,
if I
yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
bassist or a guitarist, I probably would
mhm.
want pedals on stage.
And Bones is also the head luthier of his company that he that bass that he has there that he plays, he hand carved that himself, did all the wiring, like he made that bass. His cabinet's there with the that silk screen on the front with like that tropical scene on it. That's pretty cool. I like the way that one looks too, and the pedal board is just ridiculous. Like you said,
Well,
he's gone through three,
the
four different
board is
iterations.
like a case in itself.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
He designed it so that like this is all 19 different pedals.
Mhm.
He made sure they were beautifully laid out, routed, and he probably just puts a top on it and ready to go.
And that's the thing, is a lot of times a guitar player would walk up, or I could show a guitar player a picture of that. And they're like, "Whoa, what guitar player has that many pedals?" It's like, no, that's a bass player. And they're like, "That's a
I
what?"
know.
And they can't believe it. I mean, it's an 80s band, so they have like, there are some where specifically where it's MIDI stuff, or whether it's the ones where you can get keyboard sounds essentially, because
Yeah.
you need some of that stuff for 80 stuff. He
He's
has
doing
ones
some
also.
Geddy Lee shit where
Right.
he's playing bass and synth.
Yep. And he has other ones where he has I think it's also on the board there, but separately connected is a thing for the voice, so you can do like trying to think of the song even.
Oh,
but
so he added some things for his vocals on that.
yeah,
effects
not
back
the one
too.
where you breathe into it, because I've seen some of the guys use
Talk
that
box?
too with the talk box, right? Some of the guys have the talk box, but this is one where he doesn't have to have that in his mouth, but it just alters his voice to give it that robotic kind of a sound for some of the 80s songs that they do.
I'll be your freakazoid.
There's some things like that, sure. It'll come to me sooner or later, but they play some great stuff. Yeah, I mean, all the bands that I work with, they play great music, and it's all cover stuff. So nobody really that I work with plays originals, as far as the bands that we go out and do sound for. But the crowd just loves it all, so that's great. And we're booked a couple times a week for pretty much the rest of the year. If I do have conflicts, like I just got offered a gig in September, and like that's a night when Mike and I have a gig that night, but it's like it's the AC/DC band and it's at a bar that we play at all the time, and I know Mike can definitely handle that gig without me. So as much as it's more work for him, it's one that he totally gets it. Like if I have an opportunity to play, that's like, yeah, go, go play, and we'll
I want to play.
and he has plenty of notice to make sure he eats his Wheaties that day to be able to carry all this stuff himself.
I agree, Rockstar. Rechargeable batteries suck.
Yeah. Then that's the thing, is that's why I have that brick of AA's, because somebody might say, "Oh, I've got rechargeables," and it's like, okay, you can take those out and hang on to those, and you can recharge those next time. And
for
here, let's put
music
these in here
equipment.
for now. And you guys,
For music equipment,
you got to know the draw. Yeah.
yeah, it depends. But rechargeable is not my choice for any music gear.
And the other thing is usually fresh batteries every night. Like, I mean, you can take those batteries out when you get home and do whatever. It also depends on what kind of device it is. Some devices, like a mouse for a computer, could be six months,
Yeah.
a year, 18 months. Like one battery will last almost forever in a device like that. But other devices, they'll drain after a night or two. And if it's,
Yeah,
if it's
if
going
you're
to be
playing out
1.5,
on a regular
that's no good.
basis,
Yeah.
Couple
Be ready
of
to
nights
put brand new
using-
batteries in every night and just take those other ones out and use them. Like, for me, I would use it in, I had an electric razor that was, AA battery powered. So I would just, when batteries were no longer fresh, I would just keep it, bring it over there and just use the rest of it until it was dead in that, just to get some use out of it, but not be
I
stuck
will
dying.
I will
batteries
use
on
every
stage.
battery somewhere. Like
Right.
remotes, the nice thing with the double A's and the triple A's is there's plenty of other shit I can put it in that will use the rest of the battery.
With the AAA's, for me, it was the going camping, like the headlamps and the small skinny flashlights. Like all those are using like the triple AAA batteries.
Well, some of
Saying
these
triple
new
22.
remotes, like
Yeah.
you get the Roku, they got this tiny little remote. So AAA is popular with the tiny shit, but
Yep.
double A is the shit across most mice, remotes,
Rock is
some of
talking
these
about
effects pedals.
mosquitoes over there, carrying them away. Those are some big mosquitoes then. They have some kinds of electronic mosquito repellents. You should look into that.
Oh yeah,
It's like a mosquito trap or killer.
yeah. If I ever go camping these days, I have seen some pretty cool. If it will like repel 30 feet around, and all you got to do is turn that shit on, no
Yep.
spray.
Some
Hell
of them
yeah.
weren't even repel, but it was like they go there and they're gonna get in and they're gonna die. That kind of thing.
Well, you know, eventually those mosquitoes will figure out, like, they will grow a tolerance to it. So use it while it works.
Well, individually,
Tomorrow's mosquitoes might
individually
be
they're
like...
not too smart. Individually, they're not so smart. So it's more going after, like, we know what they're looking for. Like if they're going for CO2 or they're going for this or they're going for that. Like, you know what they're looking for. So if you can simulate that and have that be a kill box, then
well, if you have
that's good.
yeah, it's like the roach motel. If you have something that you can get them to go into and they die.
Yep.
Like with that repellent, isn't it sonar based? Like
depends. Depends on the ones. I've seen some things that are insect repellents that are like a very high pitch frequency that's higher than dogs or cats or whatever, but high enough that it makes it uncomfortable for insects, so they would prefer to be elsewhere. So they would just naturally move away from the sound.
Some insects will do that for the next couple of decades, but eventually use it.
Well,
if that was to get used, if that was to get used on a regular basis, I bet you would start to have some insects that would start to say, I'm still hungry. I'm gonna go in.
Nate's talking about the mosquito eater again, and that was one where I literally did see, watching YouTube, watching some video, and it did pop up as one of the ads talking about, this college kid solved a multi-trillion-dollar problem by basically solving the mosquito problem or solving the malaria problem by being able to kill insects with a very small device that's basically either rechargeable or powerable by USB or whatever.
Eater.
Look for electronic mosquito trap or whatever. Something along those lines. I think you'd see something that was either recent, and I can't vouch for the usefulness, but I can say that it definitely looked like a promising concept. And if the results are what they say they are, that would probably be pretty good. But I usually don't pitch any particular products over
mosquitoes.
It doesn't eat them. It's just basically something, again, where it draws them in, or what they're looking for. So you are setting a trap for them to come in there, and then once they're in there, I think it just uses an electric charge, and once they're in there, it just kills them instantly.
Yeah. It's the modern roach motel.
I wish we had the like Kiefer just put a big spider in there. I wish we had the one from Schmorley when he had that trapdoor spider with the glass door. That thing was badass.
Dude, that one was nasty looking.
That was badass. Let me see if they have a good one for a trapdoor spider here. I mean, that probably is what that is, but it was just the way he came out and just like slammed the door on it. He was like, "What, dude?" And that spider did not look like he was messing around at all. Oh, there you go. That's a good one. But that little door right there, the one in Schmorley's yard, that was a glass door. Like the bottom of a Coke bottle. Oh, Tony, your mic went out. No good.
Oh, my mic went out?
Oh, there you are. Yeah. But yeah, it had the door just like that one. Crazy.
I'm fascinated by that little trap door.
Mm-hmm.
Did he make that, or did they hook him up with one?
Oh, I mean, that's what they make, yeah. They make their little burrow.
They do that themselves?
They make their little burrow, and then they figure out a way to be able to...
trap door?
Blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not always made of glass. It's not always perfect like that. I mean, this one looks like it is at the bottom of a lid or something where it's almost hinged at the back. So if you imagine they would put, some webbing at the back to make a hinge.
That little shit was smart. Dug a hole, found the perfect cover for it, made sure it looked like sand, and
then you hang out nice and quiet and wait for something to walk by and...
Oh, that fly on Mike Pence freaked the shit out of me when I was watching that night. I was like, wait a minute. How is nobody saying anything right now? But, it's fucked up. You're on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for the whole not killing spiders thing, I do get that kind of. I mean, spiders are there killing other bugs, and that is a good thing. But there's also a number of spiders that's too many to have in the house, and when the bigger the spider, the lower that number gets. So, like, really small spider, I don't really care so much. But you get a big spider, oh, you're going out. And I mean,
If you're gonna be a bug around me, don't get in my face.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
fly around me. Don't annoy me, and I don't mind bugs as
yeah,
long
exactly.
as they don't annoy me.
Yep.
Spiders are not a bad thing in some cases because they do get rid of other riffraff. Like in basements where my bands always were,
Yeah.
we didn't kill our spiders because they kept the other crap out, like the mosquitoes and flies and
And Mr. Sutherland is correct. Wasps are dicks for
oh
sure.
yeah.
And have you seen? Let me see. They might even have a good GIF here. I really hope they do.
Have you seen Blackie Lawless lately?
Let me see here. How about this guy? That's like a murder hornet right there.
Are those the ones that were like?
There's some that are like bigger than my hand, like bigger. Like if
Well,
you had a bunch of them laying
a
across
couple
my
of
hand,
years
they're
ago,
like,
we had a problem with like some crazy Chinese hornets, or
yep,
that they were calling like murder hornets.
that's what these were. Yeah, murder hornets. And I mean that may not be the best view. Maybe that one's better. But yeah, I mean they were big and nasty looking. And if they were in fact hornets, I mean I think it's the mouth that's the problem, not the
Oh,
stinger at the back. So that's
yeah,
they could
Q got attacked by hornets at
they could
10.
just
That shit
oh
fucks you up.
yeah
When I was 14, I got 36 stings. Was playing hide and seek, accidentally jumped on a piece of plywood that there was a bee's nest under it.
yep
Next thing I knew, I was covered in bees. And I'm running towards my cousin's house. My dad's on the porch. I'm like, Dad, I'm
yep
getting
yeah
stung.
for me it
He's
was a
like,
camp.
roll on the ground, which
Oh
apparently does not help when
yeah,
you're being
no.
stung.
You're rolling on them and just making them sting you. Even the ones that weren't about to sting you, it's like they end up stinging you because you stung yourself with them. But yeah, it was probably about 10 stings for me, maybe a little bit less. But it was at camp. And it was because we were going across a little bridge. Somebody decided they didn't want to wait, so they jumped to the bank. And on the bank, it ended up blowing up. Oh, your mic went out again.
Did it? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, talking about couldn't hear anything.
Test.
That's a crazy gift blowing up. That's better. Test.
This mic shouldn't go out. I'm on the Mackie.
Weird.
It'd be the connection if I'm dropping.
That could be.
I'm
But
not
yeah,
on
no
the,
fun.
I'm not on the wireless headset.
Nobody wants to get stung. That's for sure. But yeah, when somebody jumped over and same thing, landed on a hornet, or not a hornet's nest, but yellow jackets in this case, like a yellow jacket nest, and just everybody got stung like multiple times. Nobody had fun that day. Red ants, that's more of like or fire ants down in Florida. That was one of those things. Never had experiences with those myself, but I've seen things about them, and I'm like, yeah, that sucks.
Oh, I don't
Up here
want
in
to
New
get bit
Jersey,
by
there's not
ants.
that many. There's not that many things in the wildlife that I have to worry about in New Jersey, but there are places where it's like, oh, don't go outside, dude. What are you kidding me? Some areas of Australia, for example, like everything out there wants to kill you.
That's what they say.
Mm-hmm. Even one of those signs that I saw in one of these meme things, the first sign, it was like an enormous sign, and it had like 8 things listed or whatever, 6 things listed, and all of them are things that are going to kill you. And it was like all of these are going to equal death, and they're all for the next 4,000 kilometers or whatever. It's like the whole area is just trying to kill your ass. But yeah, nature's no joke. There's all kinds of things that can end up killing you. I'm just glad not many of them live near me.
Well, neither is the city.
I do go visit them though.
I got a better chance walking outside into nature
Mm-hmm.
out here
Mm-hmm.
than walking outside into the city these days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'll take my chances with these crazy ass animals.
And me, I can get to either. Like I'm close enough. I mean, I can see New York City from here, so I'm right near the city. And this area is, it's not city-ish where I am, but it's also not, complete country-ish right here. But I can, travel a few minutes this way and a few minutes that way, and all of a sudden I'm out at like lakes and all green.
Well, that's why it's
trees.
nice. It's nice to be close to PA.
Mm-hmm.
PA, you got a lot of options.
PA, North Jersey, New York State, a bunch of nice things around.
Oh, if you can get past New York City,
oh yeah,
you got great options in northern New York. Beautiful area.
Oh yeah. That's where we go up to the mountain every year, and that's a little ways up there, a couple hours north from where I am,
Oh yeah, that's
but
the
worth the
big.
trip every time.
That's the big gig.
Yep. I'm gonna have to cut it short this year, but that's okay. It'll be fun nonetheless.
I wish I had like a weekend concert every year to go play.
Yeah,
I
we
that
have a few of them.
that would be enough for me. One good weekend concert every year would be something I look forward to.
One of the ones, one of the first traditions like that I got into was with Joey, doing that Jersey City Park gigs. And it's not always the same gig every year, but the first one that we had done, I mean, I only knew a few songs really, and this is going back 10 years or whatever, 12 maybe. I really didn't know that many songs on bass, and he wanted to go do a concert out at Parks in Jersey City because a friend of his was the president of the park, and they do an art show there, and they wanted us to play outside to draw people in to come look at pictures, for an art show. I was like, that sounds cool, and we would just be playing outside. And he's like, oh, we've been playing for 3 hours, and I just like kind of looked at him blankly, like, I don't know 3 hours worth of music.
Oh,
And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, because he already knew, like, kind of, we played together a number of times, and he knew what to expect from me. Like,
I bet you could noodle for 3 hours.
exactly. And it's not even noodling. It's kind of winding me up. It's like, like a wind up toy. Like, if you show me, okay, this and this and this, and then like, keep going. Okay. And then, I'm doing that and you go do something else. And then he can solo for an hour over me just doing that same thing, and then if we're going to go to a different gig, he can just be like, and D, and he can
See,
walk, he knows he can walk me through stuff like that.
And
So,
that's the beauty of musicians that are like influenced from Grateful Dead, Pink Floyd. If the Doors, if you're influenced by certain bands, you become that like 3 hour noodler.
mhm.
You can.
Or even just playing by ear, or recognizing, you feel, oh, they're going to the two now. You didn't have to, nobody told you they're going to the two, but you go from whatever key it was in and you felt it go there, and you just know from experience that, okay, now that actually feels like the two, and now you
Yeah.
go there and yep,
Or
that's what it is.
even improv jazz players. Improv jazz players can pretty much go sit down all afternoon and just bounce off each other.
Yeah. And a lot of times with the jazz guys, they will have a piece that they're going to start with. And I like that too. Like, I don't necessarily just want to sit down and have somebody start playing
Yeah,
notes
you want
and
some
have everybody
structure.
jump in. Structure is important for me.
Yeah.
So like, I would rather sit down, and even if we don't have to necessarily talk about it, but if we just get into something that's familiar and be like, oh, that, yeah, I recognize that. And then we
You
just
don't
jump
have
into
to
that
talk
structure.
about it, but if
Right.
you nod your head or you kind of look at me a certain way,
Or
you
you
said
start playing the
enough.
riff and I start playing the next part of the riff. Like, you get that, I get it. I get that, you get, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, hit a couple notes,
Yeah.
look at me a certain way, and I got it.
Yep. Then we're right into it. Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. So that's where it's different doing it that way than it is when you have somebody who's like, okay, what key is it in? And then, okay, let me see let me write down, and they're going to write down, each of the measures and all that. And I get it. It's different ways of dealing with it. Everybody has their own approach that makes it sink in for them. But if anybody is relying on getting it written down like that, to me, it's important to hear the sound. So if someone's telling me it's a song and they just tell me, okay, it's in C and then F and then C and then G, like if they're just reading me letters, you're just telling me a story. And if it's more than a few letters long, I'm not going to remember what you said at the beginning. But if you say, okay, it's C and then G, and like with each one, you're actually playing the chord, I can hear how it's coming around, and that'll actually make it make sense to me.
That actually does make sense to me.
So like if I go, let's say C, A minor, C, A minor, F, and G. I'll do it that way. Little 1, 6, 4, 5. And if you put a little 50s kind of feel to that, how many songs is that? Is that Earth Angel?
Oh my God. Yeah, I actually had like 3 songs back in the old days that
all had that
that progression.
Yeah. Nice. It's a good bounce. Yeah.
Very easy to build off of too.
Yeah. And like we said, you could start with something like that. And if it feels like, oh, okay, every song is like this, or there's too many songs that are like this, you could just take that as a starting point and just replace any one of those with a borrowed chord, like we
Or
talked before.
or bounce that off of a musician. And even with that starting point, I throw that at Ange, I will
Oh, yeah.
get one
You throw that at Ange,
amazing
you'll get 100 songs. You get 100 songs out of Ange with that. With that or
and
anything you
you
throw
know,
at it, for sure.
some of these other band labbers, like that same part can really go in different directions from the artist.
And the other key is to try to cover as much emotional ground with those same chords. Like the way you played one time, it might be more cheerful. And, you know, like the A minor is a little bit sad, but as far as the actual progression, you know, it sounds a bit cheerful. So it kind of got like a little bouncy hop to it, whatever. But if you played it with more of a dragging, slow, brooding kind of a feel to it, it would sound completely different, probably.
I'm trying to be brooding.
Nice.
Like, what would you?
No, it's good. It's good to try to work your way through it. It doesn't always have to be as many notes.
I'm
but it
trying
could
to
just be
think what
more.
would how do you do brooding?
Even just taking it more like held notes, like, you know, and then working down. Yeah. Feels very different than the first way.
Well, it's kind of like
Trudging almost. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm trying to get through the day.
Slogging. How about that?
And then I get back up again.
Yeah. And then what if it was more like fireworks, like more bombastic, like, you know, trying to get as flashy and explosive and things like that.
See, that's where I start thinking like the 50s piano, you know, great balls of fire.
Yeah.
But I need that honky tonk sound that you had earlier because it works better for that kind of stuff. You got to get that kind of bounce, that twang helps.
Honky tonk sound. Nice. And then that's not even getting into like tubular bells and flutes and accordions and all the other stuff that we can get into.
Oh, flutes
Nice.
are fun.
Yeah.
Flutes make you really think about melody because it's kind of like singing or whistling. You know, when I approach a flute, I kind of feel like I'm whistling.
Now I got sound coming in from somewhere. You hear that, don't you?
No. Oh, I hear that.
You heard that.
I heard the drum.
Nice.
Feel the rhythm of the night.
Wonder where, if that's coming in from over here, even. Pretty sure I got rid of it the last time. But you can still hear me if I do that. So that's good.
Yeah, no other sounds coming through
Okay, good.
on here.
Yeah, because the main thing, again, with the different ones that we use, with the different progressions, like when we took the dice and roll the dice and pick any particular chords, if we're just treating the 2, 3, and 6 as minors and the 1, 4, and 5 as majors, and then it doesn't really matter what you pick, you can just, using major and minor chord shapes, you can make all of those happen and make a really cool progression out of anything. starting with a home key, ideally, that's either something that's challenging for you, like try D, where that's got the two sharps. So you got the C sharp and the F sharp, and you see if you try to make something work in the key of D, whether it's a 1-4-5 or that same 1-6-4-5, but in the key of D.
D major or minor? My first question. D
it's a tall order, I know.
D major.
Because that would be, you got your D major, and then you're going down to that.
This makes me want to do one thing.
Now, does that get you to the B minor then?
This makes me want to do another thing.
Nice.
Okay, D minor. That's pretty much the same progression we were doing in C, except now it's in D.
Has a slightly different feel to it because
it has a much brighter feel. Like
exactly,
I would rather be doing it in D major than C. C has kind of, I think I've kind of gotten tired of C, which I shouldn't be. It's a beautiful scale, but there's such brightness in like a D major.
It is the key that I like, though. It sounds great.
It's the one that I'm trying to do the world song. What I got so far. Not actually in that way, but same chords.
Like it. Yeah, very cool. I was able to find where the sound was coming from on my end, so it's gone. So I can hear once again. Very good.
I can hear clearly now. Damn, you figured that shit out fast. I was still processing it in my head, but I'm getting there. I see your ability to those big jumps. Yeah, it's because that's the one that. Oh, it's a third. No,
I think it's an E, C, G.
Yeah, you're right.
Nice. And that's where those little chirp chords come in, because that's where you've got somebody on a little acoustic guitar just doing those little chirp chords. That works out nice. What are we doing? C? I don't know where the chords go, though, is the thing. Whether they go somewhere else, but I imagine it would be that. I was the F, right? When you get to that F, and then you're back to the C. Yeah, no, that sounds like Brown Eyed Girl.
Well, yeah, it's taking that third approach, you know. I just like the way it bounces in thirds that way.
Nice.
It works even better in minor. I like that whole third approach, dual melody, you know, with the 1 and the 3.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of that too.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple of songs where it really does spice up a certain part, like.
Nice. One that we were talking about before was Circle of Fifths. So I just wanted to bring up one real quick that we talked about earlier here before we get to the end here. We're not going to play the actual video, but I just wanted
Circle of Fifths is the cycle of life in
yes,
music.
This one was from the page.
See, and I do actually
Gracie
understand it
Tosian.
when I look at this clock, like this 5th clock, is the only way it made sense to me.
Right. And actually, the important things are a few important things that are all kind of right together here. And this is just, again, just a little pause in the video. I would definitely check out the whole thing. It's worthwhile looking into the whole thing. But for right now, we're just going to really look at the main concept here and the fact that starting on the top there, the C has no sharps or flats. Going around to the right, you're adding sharps. Going around to the left, you'd be adding flats. So C has no sharps. G has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going around that way. If you go around the other way with the C to the F is to 1 flat. So the B flat has 2 flats going around that way. And the order of the sharps and the order that the flats are added are up at the top there, the way she has them listed.
So half the afternoon is sharps and the evening is flats. And then half the morning is sharps and the
basically, if you consider getting down to that G flat at the bottom, like the idea would be, the way I used to remember it is this word bead, right? B-E-A-D exists both on the right side here, as well as with all the flatted ones here, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. By using that to my advantage, that's those
and
4
it's
and
in
those
reverse 4. On the sharps.
Right. Or if you're going around in a circle, like if you go around the circle of fourths, you also see the movement, if you go around to the left is fourths, if you go around to the right is fifths. So if you go around to the left, you're going C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat.
Major, G major, D major, A major, E major,
Then you're at the G flat.
think I popped a brain cell.
Hey, you made it all the
I
way
did
down
it
there.
though.
Yeah. And right there, that was, G was 1 sharp, D was 2, A was 3, E was 4, that B is 5. So that's using all the black notes right there.
But
and then when you get to that G flat, now you're adding a
I
sixth
did
one.
each one as a major chord, which is probably not the right way, right? Like,
well, no, that's fine. That's actually just the way you would think about each one as the one chord, but you're moving the chord progression around that way. But you'll also notice the way it moves.
If I was to actually stretch each one of those chords into a couple of bars, then I might play a little in C major.
That's actually one trick for
oh, this E's gonna fuck me up.
well, if that's down where after the E,
and then B. Holy shit! I'm trying to invert to make it more convenient. But again, all majors just played a little slower.
Sure.
And you could.
And then if you were to start at the top and go around, and if you're going around to the left, you'd be playing around in fourths, and you'd be adding flats each time. So you'd be starting with the C.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for G flat and F sharp yet.
Well, G flat we were playing before. Remember, that was just all of the the black notes.
G flat. Which would also. Okay, so this is the same for F sharp major,
and G flat
is the same as G flat major.
But again, I would tend to call that G flat myself, and just coming down from the left side, C F B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B E A D G C.
Well, the only way you could call it G or F there is depending on where you go next. Like,
well, really, it comes down to if you were playing the full scale out. If you were playing all the notes in the scale, you would not have an F and an F sharp in the scale, but you would have an F and a G flat. Is where the difference would come in.
See, I don't know. From an F sharp major or a G flat major. That's not part of that scale, but I do like how it sounds.
See, for me, trying to go back up around that side wouldn't be the way to go. Like, I tend to go from the top down to the G flat around the sharp side, for example, and then I'd go back to the C and go back around to the left down the flat side.
So
just because things do change down the bottom.
If I played these two chords for you, the first one, this is either G flat or F sharp. If I go here, which is F sharp, A, D, D.
The next one, if you were going around that,
it's a D major. It's a D major. Okay,
it would be D flat that you would be going.
If I go from this G flat F sharp to a D major, what key am I in?
Well, that's hard to say, because actually we haven't really been in a key. We've just been going around the circle of fifths, playing a major chord in each place. So we've been playing essentially the 5 to the 1 to the 5, just working our way and changing where the 1 is every time we move. So it's not so much.
Oh, I am in.
That sounds good though.
E major. At the
way to figure it out to me is to figure out where are the two major chords next to each other. Like if you start playing all the chords that would be part of that key, which ones are major and which ones are minor, and which one is right out.
I am in E major at the end.
Nice.
But I start on that fucking G flat F sharp. That's a weird place to start. I don't know what key I'm in at this point. Going to a D. I guess that's on the sharp side, because this is D major. This goes to D major for a second, but then going to the A major. Yeah, we go to the right to E major. All of these are sharp scales.
And you can feel how good that feels going around that circle of fifths. Another way people tend to use it would be if you were starting in, let's say, D, and you wanted to have a different section of the song, you would jump from the D all the way down to that B and work your way back. So you'd go D, B, E, A, D. Kind of
On the
working your
flat
way
side?
on the sharp side.
Oh.
Starting on the D, like if you're in the key of D major, so you get that
Gotcha.
feel, and then you jump to the B, to E, the A, and the D to work your way back.
You're saying the D. Oh.
Then A and then D. Yeah. Because that movement by fifths or the movement by fourths feels really good.
I could go to the A for sure. Could even go to the G. Even that works.
Yeah.
Once you start shifting to that D, where you go from there, going from D major to A major, like at this point, I could shift keys on any one of those chords.
Mm-hmm.
None of those chords commit to a key yet, like because once you start jumping up the fifths like that, you don't want to be in this key anymore. Jump the right way, and all of a sudden, hold for a second. Now I'm in D major. Now I'm in G flat major. Still fucking my mind up.
Moving all over the place.
Technically, I was in two different scales during those bars. And if I go here, I kind of defined the D at that point. The moment I went from here to here, I kind of said, yes, I was in D major. Before that, if I keep going back to this...
Well, actually, it could be A major also. How does the, when you hit that D major and the A major, what does an E major feel like next to those two?
It feels beautiful. It feels
those are like a 1, a 4, and a 5. If
it feels
you're
like
in
a
major.
landing. And that's why I say I was in E major in the end, because that's a landing.
But if you were in E major, then A major and B major would also be in that case. So that would be E major, right? E major would have the A major and the B major as the 4 and the 5, usually.
It said E major, A major. What was the third?
A major, B major.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a 1, 4, 5 in E then, with all A, B, E, A, and B all being major. And see how that feels different than going with the A major, D major, and E major. Because that's a 1, 4, 5 going around that way. And again, any order doesn't matter. But that's how kind of, once I figure out where those two major chords are next to each other, I put those as the 4 and the 5 in my head, and then whatever turns out to be the 1, that's kind of the home key that we're in. Because that puts all the majors and minors in the right places, and you know that you want to avoid the 7. So if you were playing in A, for example, right there, or if you were playing...
A major is a key that I like. Going 1, 4, 5, I'm thinking up in this case, like And typically when I play an A major, I do this downwards motion, like kind of like what I do in C, where it's like,
Right.
that's my A major approach usually, is to go down, but
Mhm.
so that's a 1, 2, a 3. 1, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Not your typical progression, but still nice.
Yeah. Now, was that 3? Was that a minor or a major?
No, it's right up A major.
And that's where that 3 is kind of a borrowed chord, probably, where normally we would have that 3 as a minor, but bringing it in as a major borrows from there. But the 4 and the 5 definitely sound like they should be major, though, right? I like that. It's got that very positive major sound to it.
Does feel positive, huh? You can do it.
Exactly. And of course, there's always the explorations of the different sounds at one's fingertips, whether it's the piano.
I'm happy with the piano. I'll
rhythms
sit
going.
with the piano all damn night. Although that does make me want to play a different kind of piano.
Although what I really did like was when we put it into the Casio chord mode and you turn the rhythm on and then just give it a key, and that way you get the whole gist of the song that they're doing. Let's go backwards to C and G.
It said C and G.
C and G, yep. And now I'm gonna go to A. And then D. And back to C.
I'm not sure that's C.
And G. But yeah, just little stuff like that. It's kind of fun to have a piano where you can just sit there, hit start, and just start hitting single notes and getting a feel for what an entire progression would kind of feel like. All the way
I was
around.
kind of following you, and I didn't even see the notes.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can feel it. Like, when it's going between this and that, you got a feel for what it should be in that neighborhood. Hey,
Well,
Pat, what's up?
for that kind of beat, that is one where like I really want to get that like salsa bounce. It's not so much for the piano, but more like electric piano, you know, or like in really cool organ. You can have a
Sometimes
lot
to me
of
even
fun
like
with Latin.
some kind of a guitar sound, like we get those guitar chirp chords almost. Not sure how the guitar sounds are here though. Nylon guitar. Steel guitar. Has more bite to it. The old guitars.
don't have a lot of good acoustic guitar sounds, but I do like that one.
Jazz guitar is a little more muted. It has even more bite. Muted. Too muted. Overdrive. Distortion. Harmonics.
Oh, that's a feel-good sound.
Guitar harmonics go
makes
way up.
me want to go skipping down the path.
That's a little too high.
Ooh, steel saw.
Fun with sounds.
Ooh, guitar fret noises. I could solo, see?
Finger bass sounds pretty good.
Better on the piano. It's
That's
hard
very cool.
playing a guitar on the keyboard.
Yeah, definitely. And the little chords, and that's where some of them, the articulations, like the harder you press, it might not do what you think. It might not be just more volume. In some cases, depending on what sound you're using, it might be, like I said, pick scrapes or different types of articulations. I feel like I'm
skating on glass with some of these patches because they're so sensitive.
Sure. Needs a light touch.
I like my outros.
I do too.
They're as important as intros.
At least as important as our verses and choruses, but they're not always in there. Like sometimes you have a song that'll start abruptly or end abruptly, but that's okay too.
The stuff in the middle is the meat. in a song sandwich. I like my bread in my sandwich, but
But you don't
it's
want
the
a
meat
bread.
that makes the song.
But you don't want a wish sandwich. You got to have something in there.
Oh,
Gotta
I
have
see the
something
bass
like
coming.
the mask
There's
summoning song.
the mask. I need a better. There we go. I do know the rest of it.
Good stuff.
How are you guys?
How's it
Not
going,
bad.
so?
How's tomorrow afternoon? Tell us about our future.
Yes. Where are we going to be?
You don't have the lottery numbers for us again, do you?
No.
Damn it. We told you, man. Tomorrow's numbers, that's all we need. Once we get those, it's all over.
I'm going to start playing Australian lottery.
Good plan.
Uh,
Got yourself
Oh,
all
that's
set.
So
a kick-ass
I'm all
shirt.
I'm all clear and
Nice.
yeah, done.
You're all good, and you're
Hell yeah.
dressed to impress.
Dressed to impress, ready to rock. Enjoy the show, man.
Early.
Thanks for everybody who was there, and that was fun, Glenn.
Catch everybody next week.